Black girl in a wheelchair. Bullied at school. Turns out she's a national martial arts champion. The basketball hit her face before she saw it coming. The slap of rubber against her cheek echoed through the gym, followed by an eruption of cruel laughter. Talia Brooks' wheelchair spun slightly from the impact. Her books slid off her lap and scattered across the floor. Oops, my bad. Ethan Cross smirked as he sauntered over, spinning another basketball in his palm like a circus act. The other kids snickered behind him, their laughter bouncing off the gym walls like bullets. Talia didn't flinch. She calmly picked up her math notebook and placed it back in her lap. The red mark swelling on her cheek said everything, but her eyes, they didn't scream pain. They were steady, focused. Ethan leaned over her, his towering frame casting a shadow. "You sure this is the right school for you, Wheels?" he sneered. "We don't have speed bumps in the hall." The gym teacher stood just a few feet away, pretending not to hear. A whistle hung from his neck, idle. "I asked you a question," Ethan pressed, lowering his voice but not his arrogance. "You gonna cry or what?" Talia looked up at him. For a split second, her lips parted like she might say something. Instead, she simply smiled. It wasn't the smile Ethan expected. It wasn't fear. It wasn't defeat. It was calm, cold, almost amused. She wheeled past him without a word. That night, the clip of the basketball hitting her face hit TikTok like wildfire, uploaded by Ethan's friend. Captioned, "Girl eats basketball at Crestwood." The comments poured in, some laughing, some outraged, but one stood out, quietly posted under a burner account. "You just hit a national champion. Hope you enjoyed your last laugh." No one paid it any attention. The next morning, Crestwood High returned to normal. Talia rolled through the front entrance like she had the day before, head up. Eyes scanning, fingers gripping the rims of her wheelchair like a pilot gripping controls. She wore her usual, a dark gray hoodie with sleeves pushed up, black joggers, and worn-down Converse. Her braids were pulled back into a simple low bun. No makeup, no jewelry, no need for either. The hallway chatter died a little as she passed. Whispers followed her like ghosts. "That's the girl from the video." She didn't even fight back. "Bet she's transferring next week." Talia caught sight of her reflection in a classroom window. The red mark was now purple and fading, but it didn't matter. She wheeled into homeroom, parked at the side, and pulled out her book, The Art of War. Irony was not lost on her. Ethan swaggered in a few moments later, high-fiving classmates, laughing loud, feeding off the spotlight. He glanced her way and gave a mock salute. Talia didn't blink. Then came third-period gym. Coach Riley barked instructions for dodgeball, something that shouldn't have included her. "Talia, you can sit this one out," he mumbled without eye contact. She nodded once, rolled herself over to the bleachers, sat in silence as the game began. But halfway through the match, one of the balls flew wide and smacked her chair, toppling her water bottle. A few kids laughed again. Coach Riley didn't react, not even a whistle blow, and that's when Ms. Alvarez entered. She was the school janitor, older, Latina, with silver streaks in her thick black hair and eyes that held more stories than most books in the library. She pushed her cleaning cart past the edge of the gym, then paused, watching Talia with interest. Their eyes met for the first time. Ms. Alvarez tilted her head, studying her face. Then she mouthed the words without speaking. "I know who you are." Talia blinked. Her fingers tightened on her chair rims. She looked down, away. After school, as she wheeled herself toward the back exit, trying to avoid another accidental run-in, she found the path blocked by Ethan and his crew. "Hey, Wheels," he called. "Bet you can't dodge this." He raised a dodgeball and threw it hard. But this time she caught it. Not clumsily, not by luck. She caught it clean reflex, fast, fingers strong. The force spun her chair slightly, but she didn't flinch. Her eyes locked with Ethan's. The hallway went silent. Ethan's grin faded. "I said," Talia replied coolly, "I'm not playing." She dropped the ball at his feet. One of his friends stepped forward. "You're not as helpless as you look." "I never was," she said. Ms. Alvarez stepped from around the corner, arms folded. "You boys need to clear out," she said, her voice like gravel and fire. They hesitated. Ethan scoffed. "She your granddaughter or something?" "No," Alvarez replied, "but I know a warrior when I see one." That night, Talia sat in her small bedroom, the lights low, fingers dancing across the surface of a laptop. She wasn't on social media. She was watching old footage of herself. In the clips, she was standing, kicking, fighting. Her body flew like it was made of liquid steel. She wasn't in a chair then. She was in the ring. And she was winning. The last video paused on a shot of her, arms raised, championship belt above her head. 2 years ago, before the accident, before everything changed. She closed the laptop, sat in silence, then whispered, "They think I'm broken. Let them keep thinking it." And she smiled to herself. In another part of town, Miss Alvarez picked up an old dusty box from her closet. Inside were yellowed newspaper clippings. One headline read, "Talia Brooks, teenage martial arts phenom dominates national tournament." She traced the photo of young Talia with her fingers, then placed it beside a new file she had started, a folder labeled Operation Payback. The war hadn't started yet, but the opening move had just been made. The whispers didn't stop. If anything, they multiplied. By Monday morning, Talia couldn't roll down a single hallway without someone glancing sideways or pretending not to stare. The gym video had been taken down either out of guilt or fear, but the damage had already spread. Students weren't sure what had changed, only that something had. The girl in the wheelchair wasn't who they thought she was. Ethan tried to act like he didn't care, but the unease was clear in his tone. "She just caught a ball," he told his friends in the cafeteria. "It's not like she stood up and punched me or anything." But the way she'd caught it, clean, fast, precise, stuck with him. It wasn't beginner's luck. It was muscle memory. It was training. Still, he couldn't let her win. Not socially, not in front of everyone. So he turned it up. During second period science, Talia found her wheels coated in clear hair gel. The sticky mess slowed her glide, and her palms slipped whenever she tried to turn. When she looked up, Ethan and 2 others were snickering from the back row. The teacher never noticed. Talia didn't say a word. She calmly pulled tissues from her bag, wiped the rims, and kept moving. At lunch, someone accidentally dropped their tray beside her, splattering food onto her lap. Again, no teacher saw a thing. When she rolled outside to get air, 2 freshmen darted in front of her and mocked the way her arms moved on the wheels. Talia pushed through it all like she'd been doing it for years, because she had. But she wasn't alone anymore. Miss Alvarez was watching, and not just watching, documenting. That afternoon, she handed a sealed envelope to the school counselor, Mrs. Whitaker. Inside were screenshots of the TikTok video, timestamps of bullying incidents, and a list of names. Alvarez said nothing, just gave a nod and left. Later that day, Mrs. Whitaker called Ethan in for a friendly chat. He laughed through most of it. "I didn't mean anything," he said with a smirk. "We're just kids." But the pressure was on. Still, Talia didn't know anything about the meeting. She only knew her locker had been spray-painted with the word "Faker" in red marker. And this time it stung more than she expected, because part of her wondered, was she faking? She hadn't stepped into a martial arts ring in over a year. Not since the car accident, not since the spinal cord trauma. Her legs didn't respond the same way anymore, and the therapy had plateaued months ago. Doctor said she might walk again, Or she might not. But that wasn't what hurt. What hurt was that no one at school ever saw who she was before the chair, or cared. That night, as she sat in her room staring at her dusty championship belt on the top shelf, she thought about taking it down, about posting the truth online. She even filmed a short clip. She wore a black hoodie with the medal around her neck, her voice calm. Before the chair, I was national champion. After the chair, I'm still me. She hovered her thumb over the post button, but didn't press it. She deleted the video and shut her phone. Downstairs, her mom was on the phone with someone from the district. "Yes, I've documented everything," her mother said, voice tight with controlled fury. "We have video proof. We're not staying silent." Talia listened from the stairs. Her mom always fought hard for her, but this time Talia didn't want someone to fight for her. She wanted to fight as her. The next day she went to Miss Alvarez. "Why did you mouth those words to me in the gym?" she asked directly. "You said you knew who I was." Miss Alvarez didn't blink. She just reached into her coat pocket and pulled out an old folded photograph, a black and white newspaper clipping. Talia recognized it instantly. It was her, 3 years younger, mid-air, landing a flying sidekick on an opponent twice her size. "I was there," Alvarez said. "I saw you win that final round in Atlanta. You were unforgettable." Talia frowned. "But how did you know it was me now? I'm different." "Your body might be different, but your eyes are the same." Talia swallowed the lump in her throat. No one had said that to her since the accident. Alvarez leaned closer. "The question is, when are you going to remind them who you really are?" Talia didn't answer, but that night she went into the garage. Her dad had converted part of it into a makeshift gym before the accident. She hadn't used it in months. Dust clung to the punching bags. The mirror was cracked, but the balance beam was still there. The hand grips, the resistance cables, and the gloves. Talia strapped them on, slowly, one hand, then the other. She wheeled to the center of the room, took a deep breath. Then she began, first with slow jabs, then elbow strikes. She used her upper body, her arms, her core. Every movement practiced, measured, sharp. She imagined Ethan's face. She imagined the word faker on her locker. And she punched harder. The rhythm came back faster than she expected. Her breathing aligned with her strikes. Her chair glided along the mat as if she were dancing. Sweat poured down her face. Her muscles burned. But her spirit lit up. She didn't need legs to be a fighter. She never had. Just as she landed her final punch, the garage door creaked open. Her mom stood there, wide-eyed. "Talia," she whispered. Talia dropped her arms. "I'm not going to be quiet anymore," she said. "They want a show. I'll give them one." Her mother didn't speak, just nodded, eyes glassy. The next morning, Talia rolled into school not in silence but in full color. She wore her tournament jacket, the national martial arts patch stitched across the shoulder. Her braids were styled into 2 neat rows down her back. Her wheelchair had new grips, black and red. And on her lap, her championship medal. The cafeteria quieted the second she entered. Ethan stopped mid-sentence. Talia rolled to her usual spot, took out her book and began reading. No words, no drama, just facts. And for the first time since she arrived at Crestwood, no one dared throw a ball, or food, or shade, because now they knew. But what they didn't know, Talia wasn't done. She was just getting started. The buzz didn't die. If anything, it erupted. By the middle of the week, the story had caught fire on Crestwood's group chats. Students reposted an old YouTube video someone dug up. Talia Lewis, age 13, facing off against a college-level fighter in an exhibition match. It ended with a roundhouse strike that made the crowd explode. The comments section lit up. "No way, that's the same girl." She's in a wheelchair now. What happened? How did we not know this? But as fame trickled in, so did the pressure. Talia tried to stay ahead of it. Every morning she rolled in wearing confidence like armor, but under the surface, questions kept circling. Was she still that girl? Could she ever compete again? Her PE teacher, Coach Walters, called her into his office Thursday morning. He was an ex-Marine turned gym coach, always gruff, never soft. "Talia," he began, gesturing toward the folding chair across from him, "you know there's a self-defense seminar coming up. We host it every year. Cops come in, teach the students basic moves, a few demos, nothing fancy." She raised an eyebrow. "Okay, I want you to lead it." That stopped her cold. "Me?" she said slowly. "You know I'm—" He cut her off. "I know you're the only person in this school who actually knows what they're doing. Doesn't matter what chair you're in, you still know how to fight, right?" She hesitated. "I haven't sparred in almost a year." "Doesn't matter. You have presence. These kids don't listen to me, but they might listen to you." Talia's hands tensed on her wheels. It was one thing to defend herself, another to step in front of hundreds and perform. Again, after everything. "What if I can't do it?" she asked. Coach Walters folded his arms. "Then you don't. But you'll regret not trying." She didn't give him an answer. Not then. But the idea didn't leave her. That afternoon, Miss Alvarez met her outside the building. "You know what I see when I look at you?" the teacher asked softly. Talia glanced sideways. "Someone who's been bullied and humiliated on a weekly basis?" Alvarez smiled. "No, I see someone who still hasn't realized how powerful she actually is." Talia didn't respond. She wasn't ready to believe that. Not yet. Later that night at home, she stood or sat frozen in front of her closet mirror. She stared at the reflection, black hoodie, leggings, bare face. But what she focused on were her arms, strong, toned, unshaken. She wheeled over to the garage. Again. This time it wasn't training, it was war prep. She unboxed her old sparring gear, gloves worn but solid. She set up her camera on a small tripod and hit record, and she began. Punches, strikes, modified kicks using resistance bands strapped to the lower frame of her chair. Moves designed to hit pressure points, not just win medals, techniques her old master taught her before he passed. She uploaded the clip to TikTok, captioned it, "Still a fighter, always will be." It went viral overnight. By Friday morning, her video had 3.2 million views. Thousands of comments poured in. "She's a beast. This girl could end me in 2 seconds. Show this in schools everywhere." One particular comment stood out. It was from a verified account. The username was @CoachJadeCombat. The message read, "Come train with us, anytime. We'd be honored." Talia clicked the profile. It was Jade Marshall, a retired national martial arts coach who now ran a program for adaptive fighters across the country. She'd trained Paralympians, world champions, and now she wanted Talia. It didn't feel real. She texted Ms. Alvarez a screenshot. Her teacher replied instantly, "Let's talk Monday." But Monday never came, because on Sunday something happened. Talia and her mom had gone to the grocery store, just a normal errand. But when they returned, the driveway was soaked, spray paint. Across the garage door in bold red letters. "Cheater. Underneath that, go away. Crip." Her mom gasped. Talia didn't. She stared at the words for a long time, silent. Then, slowly, she pulled her phone from her pocket and snapped a photo. Next, she wheeled into the garage, pulled out a bucket of water and a sponge, and began scrubbing. Her mother knelt beside her. "We should report this," she said, voice tight with rage. "We will," Talia replied. "But first," she added quietly, "we show them they picked the wrong girl." And she did. The following day at school, a new poster appeared on the gym bulletin board. Self-defense demo, led by national champion Talia Lewis. All students welcome. Rumors hit like wildfire. She's doing it? Is that allowed? She's actually going to perform? The bullies stirred too. Ethan cornered her near the locker bay. So you think you're better than us now? He sneered. No, she replied, looking him dead in the eyes. I always was. You are just finally noticing, he scoffed. You know this school only cares because you went viral, right? It's fake attention. Talia leaned in closer. Maybe, but I'm real, and after Saturday, you'll wish I wasn't. The twist came that night. Coach Jade posted Talia's video on her own page. Then the news picked it up. Local headlines read, Wheelchair martial artist from Crestwood shocks nation with comeback. National ones followed. Teen prodigy returns after injury, and she's not slowing down. Talia didn't ask for fame, but it found her anyway. And for the first time since the accident, she didn't shrink. She rose. Because the world wasn't just watching anymore. It was listening. The gym was packed. Students lined the bleachers, buzzing with anticipation, phones out, fingers twitching to record what everyone was calling the Talia Show. The air was thick with curiosity, disbelief, and a hint of jealousy. Rumors had spread fast. Some students were genuinely excited. Others came just to see if she'd mess up. Talia rolled through the gym doors, flanked by Coach Walters and Miss Alvarez. Her hair was braided tightly, skin glowing with confidence she hadn't felt in months. She wore a dark navy gi with the sleeves rolled to her elbows, a custom patch stitched on the shoulder. Phoenix Dojo, reborn to rise. She had never felt more ready or more terrified. Coach Walters gave her a nod and clapped his hands. The room quieted. All right, kids. What you're about to see isn't a stunt. This is real skill, real strength, and a real reminder to never judge someone by their chair. He stepped aside. All eyes locked on Talia. She took a deep breath and wheeled herself into the center of the mat. Some of you know me as the girl in the wheelchair, she said, her voice clear. But before that, I was a martial artist, still am. I didn't lose that just because I lost the ability to walk. I had to relearn everything. But the fighter in me never disappeared. She turned to Coach Walters, who tossed her a padded baton. She caught it mid-air, seamless. Today, she continued, I'm going to show you how strength looks different, but it's still strength. Then she began. Her routine was fluid, graceful, devastating. She struck with precision, spinning her chair with force and control, deflecting mock attackers Coach had set up, even demonstrating how to flip a person using momentum and leverage from her seated position. The room was silent. Every punch landed with intention. Every twist of her chair added power. It wasn't just a performance. It was a lesson in adaptability, in resilience, in courage. Until it wasn't. Mid-demo, just as she completed a wrist-lock reversal, a loud laugh broke from the back. It was Ethan. Wow, big deal. You think any of this matters in the real world? He shouted. Talia paused, baton in hand. It mattered when your friend tried to shove me down the stairs, she replied. The gym murmured. Ethan smirked, then stepped forward. Come on, Talia, let's really see what you got. You versus me. Let's go. Coach Walters moved to intervene, but Talia raised her hand. I got this. Gasps rippled across the gym. No way, someone whispered. Is she actually going to fight him? Talia wheeled to center court and waited. Ethan sauntered forward, cocky, swinging his arms to warm up. Don't cry when I make you look bad. She stared straight ahead. Funny. I was about to say the same. Coach handed Ethan a padded staff and moved back. Keep it clean, he warned. This is still a school. The whistle blew. Ethan lunged, but Talia had trained for this. She ducked low, letting his strike pass harmlessly over her shoulder. In one swift motion, she spun her chair and landed a precise strike to the back of his knee. He buckled, shocked. He growled, and came again, swinging wide. She blocked, deflected, twisted her wrist, and disarmed him. The baton clattered to the floor. Before he could recover, she slid her wheel to the side, hooked his ankle, and pulled. Ethan landed flat on his back. The gym exploded. Cheers, screams, laughter, it all blurred together. Phones captured every second. One student even live-streamed it. Ethan scrambled to his feet, red-faced, but Talia was already wheeling back to the center. She picked up her baton, turned to the crowd, and bowed. Then she faced Ethan. "Still want to prove something?" she asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he stormed off the mat and shoved past a teacher on his way out. Coach Walters raised both hands. "Well," he said, "that's one way to end a demo." Laughter echoed. Talia didn't laugh. Her heart was still pounding, adrenaline still rushing. But underneath it all, a quiet victory settled in her chest. It wasn't about beating Ethan. It was about showing everyone, including herself, that she hadn't disappeared, that she didn't need pity or special treatment or even approval. She just needed a chance. Later that day, in the hallway, students approached her differently, not with wide eyes or snickers, but with respect. "Yo, that move was insane," a senior boy said. "You made him look like a toddler," someone else added. A freshman girl in crutches tapped her on the shoulder. "Thanks for showing us what's possible." Talia smiled, overwhelmed. She had stepped into the fire and she had walked out stronger. But the biggest twist came that evening. Coach Jade messaged her directly. "You crushed it. I want you in our next regional showcase. Think about it. Real arena, real competition, real comeback." Talia stared at the screen, and for the first time in months she allowed herself to dream out loud, because this wasn't just a story about redemption. It was the beginning of something much bigger, and it had only just begun. The video had gone viral. By the time Talia rolled into school Monday morning, her face had been seen over 6 million times. Someone had clipped her takedown of Ethan and titled it, "Girl in Wheelchair Humiliates School Bully with Martial Arts Skills." Every platform picked it up. Even a segment on a morning news show briefly flashed her photo while the host said, "Don't mess with quiet power." But none of that prepared her for the chaos waiting outside Lincoln High. News vans, reporters, microphones, even a local council member hoping for a quick photo op. "Talia Jackson," someone shouted. "How does it feel to be the internet's new hero?" "Talia, do you plan on competing professionally?" "Talia, what do you say to bullies now?" Talia froze in her chair just past the front gate. Overwhelmed. Her fingers gripped her wheels tighter. She hadn't signed up for this part. Coach Walters appeared beside her like a shield. "We're going in," he barked at the reporters. "This is still a school, not a circus." The crowd parted reluctantly, and Coach guided her inside. The moment they passed through the doors, the noise died. Teachers gave polite nods. Students stared, whispered, some smiled. But it wasn't until she reached her locker that she noticed the shift. No one looked at her like a burden anymore. She wasn't invisible, and that terrified her more than being ignored. "You good?" asked Gabriella, who leaned against the locker beside her. "I think so," Talia answered softly. "I just didn't expect it to blow up like this." Gabriella smiled. Maybe the world needed a reminder of what strength really looks like. Before Talia could respond, Principal Henley's voice boomed over the intercom. "Talia Jackson, please report to my office. Immediately." Gabriella's brows furrowed. That didn't sound casual. Talia's stomach flipped. When she reached the principal's office, the door was already open. Inside sat Principal Henley, stone-faced. Next to him was Ethan's father, Mr. Reed, a local businessman and big donor to the school, and Ethan, of course, looking smug with a wrapped wrist and a forced grimace. "Have a seat," Principal Henley said curtly. Talia did, slowly. Mr. Reed leaned forward. "Let's get one thing straight. My son was publicly humiliated. That video made him a national laughingstock. He's receiving threats, Talia. Threats." "With all due respect," she replied, "he asked for that match, in front of the whole school, and I didn't hurt him. I disarmed him." "He has a sprain," Mr. Reed snapped. "From tripping over his own ego," Gabriella muttered in the hallway outside. Henley cleared his throat. "Regardless, this is a serious situation. The media attention has put the school in a spotlight we didn't ask for. And while I personally admire your resilience, Talia, we need to consider disciplinary action. There are codes of conduct." "Wait," Talia interrupted. "You're punishing me, or for defending myself?" "You challenged him," Ethan lied, his voice filled with fake injury. "She said she wanted to fight." "That's a lie," Talia replied sharply. "Coach Walters was there. The whole school was there." Henley sighed. "We're conducting an investigation. For now, you're suspended from extracurriculars. That includes martial arts club and regional showcase practice." It felt like the air had been knocked out of her. "No, you can't." "I can," Henley said, "and I have. You're dismissed." Outside, Gabriella waited, fuming. What the hell happened? "They're punishing me for defending myself, and they're freezing me out of the showcase." Gabriella's mouth fell open. "They can't do that. Everyone saw what happened." Talia didn't answer. She was already wheeling away, eyes burning. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She trained. That afternoon, she rolled into Coach Walters's classroom and found him taping floor mats for a session. "They pulled me from the showcase," she said flatly. He paused. "I heard. And you're just going to let them?" "No," he said. "But I also know you, and I know what you're about to do." "What's that?" He smiled faintly. "Come back stronger." Coach had arranged an off-campus training space. Quiet, no cameras, no audience, just her, Gabriella, and a few mats. "You don't need their permission to be excellent," he told her. Day after day, Talia pushed herself. Not just physically, but mentally. She focused on precision, on resilience. She worked on breath control, on harnessing her fury into strength. Meanwhile, outside the dojo, the backlash against the school had started. Students circulated petitions. Parents called the school board. Reporters dug into Mr. Reed's influence and his history of donating in exchange for favors. And then the biggest twist landed. An email from the National Adaptive Martial Arts Federation. Talia blinked twice before rereading it aloud. "We saw your performance online. We're hosting a national showcase next month in Chicago. Would you consider representing your region?" Her heart stopped. She looked up at Coach and Gabriella, speechless. "You know what this means?" Gabriella said. Coach nodded. "It means Lincoln and High might have tried to shut you down, but the world just opened a bigger door." Talia swallowed hard, heart pounding with disbelief. She had been silenced, shamed, suspended, and somehow she was about to rise again. But not for revenge, not even for recognition, for every kid watching who didn't think they had power, and for the girl in the chair who once forgot how strong she really was. The train station was packed. Talia sat quietly in her wheelchair at Union Station, hands in her lap, staring at the giant departures board. Chicago shimmered on the screen. Her train was due to arrive in 10 minutes. Beside her, Gabriella tapped away on her phone. "You sure you want to do this without telling the school?" she asked. Talia didn't answer right away. She was still processing the past week, the quiet backlash from the administration, Ethan walking the halls like he hadn't lied, and most of all, being removed from everything she had worked for. They made their choice, she finally said. I'm making mine. Gabriella nodded slowly. Well, let's go show them what they missed out on. They boarded without fanfare. No reporters, no classmates, no school banners. Just two girls on a mission that felt far bigger than any competition. Chicago was a blur of noise and lights and steel. The event was held in a massive adaptive sports complex downtown, a place that buzzed with anticipation. Everywhere she looked, there were athletes like her, some in chairs, some with prosthetics, some blind-all-focused, determined. It felt like she'd entered another world. No pity here, no whispers. Just raw skill and respect. The night before the showcase, the participants gathered in a quiet auditorium for orientation. A tall woman with graying braids stepped up to the podium. She introduced herself as Sonia Reynolds, a decorated para-athlete and now the Federation director. She looked right at Talia. We saw what you did, Sonia said, voice calm but commanding. You didn't just defend yourself. You reminded people that power doesn't always look like what they expect. Talia blinked, startled. She wasn't used to being acknowledged like that in a room full of champions. That night, she couldn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling of their shared hotel room. Gabriella was out cold, snoring softly. But Talia's heart was wide awake. She kept hearing Ethan's voice in her head, the laughter, the way the principal had looked at her like she was a problem, not a person. She clenched her fists. They were wrong. Tomorrow, she'd prove it. Showcase day arrived like a lightning bolt. The gym was packed, but Talia barely noticed. Her mind was tuned to every sound, every movement, the smell of polished floors, the sound of wheelchairs gliding, fists meeting pads. Her category, adaptive sparring, was near the end. As she waited backstage, her name was announced. Talia Jackson, representing Central California. She wheeled out into the spotlight. The crowd roared. Her opponent was a tall girl named Kira, a 3-time national champion. Kira gave her a nod, respectful, focused. The bell rang. Talia launched. Her movements were fluid, deliberate, every technique drilled into her spine. She ducked a strike, countered with a palm thrust, blocked, pivoted, spun her chair and kicked upward controlled but sharp. Kira staggered. The crowd gasped. But it wasn't about dominance. It was about discipline, skill. By the final round, the score was neck and neck. Sweat dripped down Talia's brow. Her breathing was steady. She locked eyes with Kira. Then came the final move. Kira lunged, going for a sweep. Talia anticipated it. Her chair tilted, but instead of falling, she spun with it, using the motion to deliver a hook kick that stopped inches from Kira's chest. Time froze. Then the bell rang. Silence. Then applause erupted like thunder. The referees huddled. Talia wheeled back, hands trembling. A voice boomed across the gym. Winner. Talia Jackson! Talia sat there, stunned, as the crowd rose in a standing ovation. Gabriella ran out from the side, screaming and hugging her so tight they nearly toppled over. But just as Talia began to breathe again, another surprise hit her like a truck. Principal Henley, in a full suit, standing at the edge of the mats. His face was pale. He looked small compared to the stage. Talia, he called. She turned, confused. I owe you an apology, he said, loud enough for the room to hear. There were murmurs. Cameras turned. He walked toward her awkwardly. I saw the footage. The full one. Not the edited clips. I also saw what this community did for you, and I realized we were wrong. I was wrong. Talia blinked. Why are you here? He sighed. Mr. Reed resigned from the school board. His influence is gone, and the school, well, they want you back, in every way. Talia stared at him. Part of her wanted to laugh, another part wanted to cry, but mostly she wanted him to know. "I never left," she said. "You just stopped seeing me." His eyes dropped. He nodded. "I understand." As he walked away, Talia turned to Gabriella, who grinned. "So, national champion." Talia smiled. "Guess we're just getting started." They sat there, letting the energy of the room sink in. What began with a wheelchair and whispered insults had turned into a national spotlight, and not just for her, but for every kid who'd ever been overlooked. Talia had shown the world that strength wasn't just about muscle or height or fame. It was about grit. And now, she was just getting warmed up. 2 weeks after the national showcase, Talia Jackson's life was anything but normal. Her phone buzzed nonstop with media requests. ESPN had emailed. A producer from Good Morning America called twice. Local journalists hovered outside her house, hoping for a quick interview. Even kids who used to ignore her at school now tripped over themselves trying to say hi. But for Talia, the whirlwind of attention meant less than what she'd felt on that mat in Chicago. That stillness, that control, that moment when the crowd disappeared, and it was just her and her body, moving with precision and purpose. That was her truth. And still there was unfinished business. The school board had called a special meeting. Word spread quickly. The main agenda item was policy reform in student disability inclusion and disciplinary action. It sounded sterile on paper, but everyone knew what it meant. Talia and Gabriella arrived at the school gym that night, which had been turned into a makeshift auditorium. The bleachers overflowed with students, parents, even teachers who had kept quiet when it mattered most. Principal Henley was seated near the front. His posture was stiff. Superintendent Delaney stood at the podium, nervously shuffling his notes. "Tonight," Delaney began, "we will hear from those most impacted by recent events at Westside High." He turned toward Talia. "The floor is yours." Talia wheeled forward. The microphone was too high, so Gabriella adjusted it for her without being asked. Talia looked out over the crowd. Faces stared back. Some familiar, some shamefaced, some curious. "My name is Talia Jackson," she said clearly. "You all know who I am now. Some of you probably Googled me after Chicago. Maybe you saw the medal or the highlight reels." A few students chuckled nervously. "But let's be honest. 2 months ago, you didn't see me at all." Her voice sharpened. "I was invisible to most of you until I stood up for myself in a way you didn't expect. And then suddenly I was the problem." The gym went quiet. When I was mocked, nobody stopped it. When I defended myself, I was punished. When the video got edited and twisted, the school sided with a lie. She paused, scanning the room. "I'm not just talking for myself tonight. I'm speaking for every disabled kid who's ever had to work twice as hard just to be seen as equal. For every girl who's had to smile through it when someone tells her she's too broken to be great." Her words landed like thunder. Gabriella teared up quietly beside her. "Being in a wheelchair doesn't make me less capable. It makes me different. And different doesn't mean lesser. It never has. If this school wants to be better, start by seeing us before we win trophies." The silence was thick. Then someone clapped, then another. Then the entire room was on its feet. Even Henley stood, awkwardly, yes, but sincerely. As the applause died down, Delaney cleared his throat. "Thank you, Talia. That was powerful." He turned back to the board. "In light of what we've seen and heard, I move to expunge all disciplinary actions related to the March incident from Talia's record and formally invite her to represent our district as an ambassador for inclusive education." The motion passed unanimously. But then, just as the meeting seemed ready to wrap, the twist arrived. Ethan's mother stood up. Everyone turned. Her face was pale, but her jaw was set. "I need to say something," she said, "and I don't care if it costs me my social standing or my place in the PTA." Gasps echoed. "My son lied," she said plainly. "We watched him do it. We saw how he manipulated footage and painted himself as a victim, and we let him." She shook her head. "I came here to apologize to Talia, but more than that, I want this board to know that if this school had acted responsibly when the first complaint about Ethan came through last year, none of this would have happened." A stunned silence followed, then murmurs. Then a student near the back, someone Talia recognized from her math class, stood up and added, "She's right. Ethan said stuff to other kids too." One by one, other students stood and spoke about bullying, about silence, about how the system had favored the louder voice, not the truthful one. It snowballed. By the end of the night, the school board promised to open a formal investigation into how complaints had been handled. Ethan was suspended indefinitely, pending review. Mr. Reed, the former board member who had tried to pressure staff to drop Talia from the team, was officially banned from all district activities. Outside the school, the night air was crisp. Talia and Gabriella stood together, staring up at the stars. "That felt bigger than me," Talia whispered. "It was," Gabriella said, "but you started it." Talia looked down at her lap, then back at the school. For once, she didn't feel like she had to fight just to exist. For once, the school was listening, and she wasn't done yet. It was the morning of the biggest tournament of the year, the National Youth Invitational, and Talia Jackson sat alone in the locker room, staring at her reflection in the mirror. Not the championship medals hanging around her neck, not the crowds outside chanting her name, just her. Just a girl in a wheelchair who used to eat lunch in the janitor's closet to avoid being mocked. And now, somehow, she was here. Gabriella entered quietly, holding a thermos and a nervous smile. "Thought you might want some tea before the storm," she said. Talia looked up. "Thanks. Is it bad that I'm more scared now than I was back in Chicago?" Gabriella sat beside her. "You were fighting to prove something back then. Now you're here to own it." Talia took a breath and nodded. But before she could say more, a knock came at the door. It was Coach Daniels, beaming with pride. "Media's waiting. They want a pre-match interview. You good?" Talia gave a thumbs up and rolled toward the arena floor. The gym was electric. Spectators filled every seat, signs with her name filled the air, and National Scouts lined the edge of the mat. Even the mayor of Chicago had shown up, sitting front row beside the governor. Talia's opponents didn't smile at her like they used to. They didn't mock her. Now they respected her, maybe even feared her. As the opening match began, the announcer's voice echoed. "Representing Westside High School and the city of Chicago, Talia Jackson." The roar was deafening, but just before the whistle blew, a surprise announcement stunned the entire arena. "We have a last-minute addition to today's guest judges panel. Please welcome world champion Sensei Reina Ito." The camera swung to the VIP box, where a petite woman in her 50s with a streak of silver in her hair stood and bowed. Talia's breath caught in her throat. It was her idol, the same woman whose videos she watched on loop during rehab. Coach Daniels leaned down. "You didn't think we forgot, did you?" The match started. Talia's focus snapped into place. Every movement was deliberate. Her hands moved with the precision of someone who had studied pain, survived humiliation, and still chose grace. She won her first round in under 45 seconds, then the second, then the third. But the final match that won was different. Her opponent was bigger, older, a state champion from Georgia named Marcus Lang, and he didn't like the spotlight being on some disabled girl from Chicago. You ain't earned this, he muttered as they wheeled onto the mat. You're just a feel-good story. Talia met his eyes, calm, centered. I earned it every time someone told me I wouldn't make it, and I came anyway. The bell rang. Lang charged hard. Talia evaded, blocked, countered. But then he faked a move, and her wheel caught a groove in the mat. She tilted, gasped. She didn't fall, but her balance was off. Lang saw his opening. He struck. The crowd screamed. But Talia somehow ducked low, spun her chair into position, and with one swift movement hooked his leg and took him to the mat. 1, 2, 3. Silence. Then an eruption. She'd won. But even louder than the crowd was the moment when Sensei Reina stood, walked across the arena, and bowed before Talia. You fight with the soul of a master, she said, and the heart of a leader. Tears welled in Talia's eyes. Thank you. I used to think being in this chair meant I'd never be enough. Reina smiled. And now you know it's what makes you unstoppable. The days that followed felt like a dream. Talia's story went viral again, but this time it wasn't just about the match. It was about how she'd changed a school, a system, and the way a country talked about disability and strength. A month later, she sat on the stage at her school's graduation ceremony as the valedictorian. Her speech wasn't long, just powerful. Strength isn't about what your body can do. It's about what your spirit refuses to give up on. Every one of you has something that someone else told you makes you less. Use it. Let it fuel you. Let it make you more. The auditorium roared. As the crowd dispersed, Talia wheeled toward Gabriella and Coach Daniels, the golden medal still glinting under her gown. You know, Talia said, I used to dream of disappearing. Gabriella touched her shoulder gently. Now the world dreams of being just a little more like you. Talia looked out at the emptying rows, and for the first time she didn't feel like an outsider. She felt like a force, and somewhere deep inside she knew this was only the beginning. If Talia's journey moved you, if her strength reminded you of someone you love or someone you once were, share this story. Leave a comment, subscribe, and let the world know that courage comes in every shape, size, and chair. Your support helps voices like Talia's be heard, and they deserve to echo everywhere.